Half a day and good afternoon. Thank you everyone for being here. The Committee on Education and Infrastructural Advancement, Border Protection and Maritime Transportation, Guam Preservation and Self-Determination, and Federal and Foreign Relations will now convene this virtual confirmation hearing. Today is March 9th, 2021, and it is currently 14:03. For the record, in accordance with the open government law, public notices were sent out via email to all stakeholders, senators, and all main media broadcasting outlets on Tuesday, March 2nd, 2021, and the second notice on Thursday, March 4th, 2021. Notice of today's virtual confirmation hearing was also available on the Guam Legislature's website. Joining me today for the virtual confirmation hearing is Senator Shelton, the Vice Chair, Senator Telena Taidagui, Senator Tony Ada, and I believe Senator Blas is here as well.
Yes, ma'am. Here.
All right, thank you, Senator Blas. Before we proceed with the virtual confirmation hearing, the legislature has general rules of conduct that must be followed. All must abide by the rules of conduct and conduct quality assurance standards. Please keep your video on at all times and ensure you are in a room with little interruptions and adequate lighting, specifically to make sure the participant's face is visible at all times. The host of this hearing will mute participants until called upon by the chair. When called to speak, please ensure that you are unmuted and that you are speaking into the microphone. Members of the committee wishing to speak may indicate via the in-app chat box. And questions and testimony shall be confined to the substance or nature of the agenda. Personal inference as to the character or the motive of any senator or any individual testifying is not permitted. Any violations of this general rule of conduct will result in removal from the public hearing by the host. On today's agenda, we have the confirmation hearing of Dr. Ronald McNinch to serve as a member upper level management and private business representative to the Guam Education Board. We have Dr. Aldrin B. Cajigal to serve as a member to the Guam Commission for Education Certification. We have Mr. David Mercado to serve as a member of the public school public school teacher representative to the Guam Commission for Educator Certification, and Chelsey, Ting, Nicolas to serve as a member community at large representative to the Guam Commission for Educator Certification. So we will start with Dr. McNinch, and then we will ask those who would like to give testimony to speak first. And then we'll have Dr. McNinch speak, and then we will have the Guam certification
so happy
members. Say again?
I can see you.
Okay. All right, hot mic, everyone. And then we will move to the Guam Commission certification for those other members that will give testimony, and then the appointees themselves. Okay, any questions? Okay, let's start with Dr. McNinch. We have the Superintendent Fernandez going to give testimony, and Chairman Mendiola. Superintendent or Chairman Mendiola, you guys can jump in first.
I'll yield to my chairman if you don't mind, Madam Chair.
All right, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Superintendent. Siju Smasi para sinitampu na naiham para fan gagigini, and we just thank you for giving us the opportunity to come before you and this committee to give testimony in support of my colleague, Dr. Ron McNinch on the Guam Education Board. I'd like to recognize also Dr. Mercado, who's with us on the virtual hearing, and who is the vice chair, and Ms. Feli Angel is also a member of our board. Dear Chairwoman Nelson and members of the committee, I am here on behalf of the Guam Education Board to testify in support of Governor Luliangarao's reappointment of Dr. Ronald L. McNinch as a private business representative. We look forward to the Guam legislature considering his nomination and confirming Dr. McNinch in a timely manner. Dr. McNinch was initially appointed to the board by Governor Eddie Bazacalvo in 2016 and was subsequently reappointed in 2018 for another 3-year term. Dr. McNinch's term expired on February 19, 2021, but he currently serves in the acting holdover capacity as allowed by Section 2103.9 of Chapter 2, Title 4, Guam Code Annotated. Under this section, Dr. McNinch is allowed to serve 90 days and 3 legislative days beyond the expiration of his term. We thank Governor Leon Guerrero for submitting his nomination with sufficient time for the Guam legislature to act before the expiration of the holdover period, and we look forward to the legislative confirmation in the near future. Dr. McNinch has been an excellent colleague on the board and a constructive member who works to build consensus when it comes to difficult decisions. He has taken a special interest in the work of the department to assist students in their transition from high school to college, and has been a strong supporter of concepts like early college and middle college, which helps students earn college credit before high school graduation. He has also been a proponent of transparency on the board. On the national stage, he has represented Guam effectively, being elected as a new member representative of 2017 to the National Association of State Boards of Education, NASB, and also a NASB Western Region Director in 2019. NASB allows Guam to learn from experiences and practices of other states, but it also allows us an opportunity to showcase Guam's best practices from Guam. We have a lot of work to do over the next year, and as we work to recover from COVID-19 pandemic and to define the new normal for students, families, and employees. Our board has been there to support the work of GDOE, its management team, and its employees to help bring our students back to school safely, to provide critical supports to our families, and to be a source of stability and leadership during these uncertain times. Dr. McNinch's return to the board will allow us to continue to work without disruption. Service on Guam Education Board requires dedication, commitment, and hard work, and we thank Dr. McNinch for serving alongside us over the past 4 years and look forward to his return with the consent of the legislature. Thank you for allowing me to testify today, and we look forward to your favorable action. May I also add we're kind of reminiscing, 25 years ago, Dr. McNinch was my professor at the University of Guam when I was sitting on the Board of Regents, and oftentimes I had an opportunity to just meet with him and talk about policy issues and things of that nature. And he really guided me through that on a personal level. And so I'm very grateful that it has come full circle, Madam Chairwoman, that I no longer a student of his, but actually a colleague of his on the board. And I just look forward for the opportunity, and I look forward for the support of the legislature in his confirmation hearing.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Superintendent?
Thank you, Chairwoman Nelson and members of the committee. Again, thank you for the opportunity to offer support for the reappointment of Dr. Ron McNinch to the Guam Education Board, and we thank the governor for the renomination of Dr. McNinch, and of course look forward to the legislature's review and confirmation. During the pandemic, the Guam Education Board has been a leader and a partner in our efforts at the Guam Department of Education to immediately respond to the threat of COVID-19 and to map out our gradual recovery. This has required board members to spend hours every week to receive briefings from GDOE management and staff, to take part in the various input sessions held many times in the evenings for administrators, teachers, parents, and students, and to develop or concur with what have been significant and complex decisions during these past few months. Along the way, Dr. McNinch has proven to be a team player with his fellow board members, but also a staunch supporter of the hard work of GDOE in supporting our island on the front lines, in developing options for delivering education safely, and now in moving towards a broader recovery where we can welcome more students back to our school facilities. We appreciate his insights, suggestions, and support throughout all these critical months. Going forward, the work of the department will continue to be complex and critical to the island's recovery. So Dr. McNinch's continued service will enable the board to have its full complement of members at a time where we need the expertise, insights, and recommendations of all our elected and appointed board members. We look forward very much to the legislature taking action on his nomination in the near future. Thank you again for the opportunity to provide this testimony. Sinceramente, John Fernandez. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Superintendent. I'd like to, if there's no one else that would like to give testimony, I would like to call on the appointee himself, and that is Dr. McNinch. for your statements.
Thank you, Senator Nelson, and certainly thank you, senators, and as well as my colleagues and other supporters who are here today. And I greatly appreciate the warm support and the kind words from Mr. Mendiola and certainly Superintendent Fernandez. My comments are fairly brief. I do know this is a Zoom kind of meeting, but I would like to say just a few things in relation to my appointment, please. I would certainly like to thank Governor Lilian Guerrero. She's a strong supporter of education. She's always cooperated with our board and with our school children, whether public or private, to really try to look out for their best interests. I also want to thank the legislature, in particular Senator Nelson's office. The public often doesn't see the hard work of staff in these kinds of appointments. I had excellent assistance from your staff, and they deserve certainly good words and accommodations in that regard. I've worked with good staff and I've worked with bad staff. Senator Nelson, your staff is excellent, and they were certainly very helpful and appropriate. In general, I would also like to thank a few other folks. I am a business representative on the board. I've worked actively with our chambers and as well as the Guam Women's Chamber, which I'm currently a member of. I think I was the first male member of the Women's Chamber. And by the way, the Women's Chamber is more fun than the other Chamber of Commerce, just so everyone knows. I have to say that I've also worked with Mr. Jeff Jones, who is excellent in supporting our education process along with our school children, Mr. Lee Weber. And also we have an additional board that supports our Department of Education, particularly our top teacher program, which we just had a very nice meeting with last week. And those folks do excellent work. And I apologize, I can't think of the exact name of the board off the top of my head, but they've been very supportive with our students. And particularly one member I work with a lot is Noel Enriquez on that board, as well as Maria Calvo on that side board. I think they're absolutely wonderful. Having community stakeholders support the Guam Department of Education is essential to our mission. And luckily we live in a community that's blessed with people who care about our school children and who care about helping our future through education. A couple other final points in terms of accolades. Just John Fernandez is a very stable, capable, and excellent school superintendent. I think he's been there probably the longest of any school superintendent. He doesn't run from problems. He frames problems and creates solutions, and he works together with others to make solutions happen. Mark Mendiola as chair has been wonderful and very collegial. Before Mark, there was Miss Maria Gutierrez. She was a very good chair, and she cared very much, particularly about the students. And before that, Mr. Peter Atta was the chair I worked with. All of these chairs of boards of education, they get nothing additional for being chair other than the headache of being a leader. And when people step up and they're leaders, particularly leaders simply to help our school children, I think that's very worthy of all of the good words that we can say for them. In terms of my work on the school board, I have just some very, very brief comments also, and then I'll wrap up my comments. I do apologize for making this a little bit longer than normal. I have some concerns for school children. I have some concerns for education. I wrote a letter to kind of abbreviate this a little bit, and I submitted it to the legislature, and I would like to kindly request the legislature or senators to review that letter as part of my overall testimony. I won't read the letter here just in terms of saving time. I do have some other concerns I didn't put in the letter. I'm deeply concerned about child safety on Guam. I'm deeply concerned about child sexual abuse on Guam. And I believe that our school system is a vanguard in helping our young people, and our school teachers are a vanguard for helping our young people when they're victims of crime, particularly criminal sexual conduct or sexual abuse. And I think that we need to be thoughtful and vigilant about that. And I know that that's one reason I'm very much in favor of having children in our school system and in our schools. And I'm very much positive about opening our schools. There are some major things. Ben Sass, the senator from Nebraska, said there's some big things our young people, our parents need to worry about for our young people, and I'm just going to list them very quickly. Overcoming peer pressure given social media pressures. Social media is a big thing we all need to be worried about and concerned about in terms of how it affects our young people. And overcoming peer culture that's related to social media is a big problem. It's something our board needs to be aware of and vigilant. And it's certainly something we're going to be discussing in the near future. Our young people today, because of their reliance on things like social media and the internet, they need to understand the value of working hard. And whether it's working hard in schoolwork or working hard in a profession, that's a key thing that we need to be mindful of. Our generation, that is anyone born before 1980 and this next generation, anyone born after 1980, the world's a very different place. Social media, the internet, and other things are creating different ways of thought for our young people. We need to be aware of and vigilant of in some areas. We need to help our young people to learn how to resist consumption. That is, they don't need to buy new stuff all the time. They don't need to buy a new iPhone just because there's a new iPhone. We need to help our young people to understand that what you have is good enough and you don't need to waste your parents' money on other things. I'm just being very blunt about that. And I don't mean to reflect on my own personal experience having a child who loves consumption. We need to help our young people to understand how travel can help them to understand the world. And I believe that because we live on a small island, our young people should experience through travel just how stark the consequences are in other parts of the world. They need to see poverty. They need to see and experience just how hard life is in places outside of our wonderful island environment. We live in an idyllic place here, and there are many, many difficulties throughout the world our young people need to become aware of. Our children also need to worry about becoming basically literate and also basically math literate. I'm a big critic of students typing on devices all the time. A young person learns 40% less when they type something on a keyboard or type something on a smart pad versus writing on pen and paper. There's a direct learning link between using pen and paper and simply inputting stuff into an electronic device. We need to be mindful of that. In general, I think that I've had 2 children in the Guam public school system. My wonderful nephew, Michael, who's 11 years old, now he's almost 37, went to Price Elementary School. He had a wonderful experience there, great school teachers, and he wishes he could come back to Guam. He talks to me about it all the time, and he loved Guam, and he had a wonderful, I think it was in the 5th grade at Price Elementary at that time. And then my daughter went to George Washington High School for a year for socialization. Because my wife was ill for a couple of years, we homeschooled our daughter. But my daughter, when she came back, she needed to be socialized in a high school environment. She went to George Washington High School. No offense, Superintendent Fernandez. I'm not being critical of George Washington High School. But my daughter at the time told me there's too much kissing and cursing in the high school for her. And that's just a general comment about, school socialization and the value of school socialization. Our young people need to have role models. They need to have people they can look up to. Our parents, this COVID environment has helped our parents to understand how important education is because they have to deal with the struggles their own children are dealing with education-wise. I think that in a way, COVID's been good for that because I think that parents now value education more. They value our teachers more. And I'm going to tell you that the teachers, the school teachers in our school system and the staff are the backbone of our island's education system. And I greatly and sincerely appreciate that. Madam Chair, that concludes my comments. And thank you for this very kind and wonderful opportunity. And thank you for the expedited process. That's another thing the public didn't see, is all the extra hard work that went into trying to make this hearing happen in a very deliberate manner. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. McNinch. We'll now move on to the Guam Commission for Education for Educator Certification. And so I will invite Chairperson Abade to give testimony. And I believe you're giving testimony for all 3 of the appointees. And then Vanessa Valencia, Anthony Kinga, Janelle Santos, and Tito Castro. Okay, and so at this time, before we move on, I'd like to acknowledge the presence of Senator Brown. Thank you for joining us, and Senator Moylan. Thank you for joining us, Senators. Okay, so we will start with Chairperson Abade. Okay. Okay, it seems people are missing. So Ray, we'll call on you to give testimony.
All right, buenas and hafade, y'all. Thank you for allowing me to participate in this virtual public hearing, and I'm pleased to be here. I'll keep my testimony short, but to the point. It's my understanding that Chelsey has been nominated to serve as a member of the Guam Commission for Educator Certification. And I think this would be a perfect fit for her, seeing as one of her dreams when she was younger was actually to be a teacher so that she can inspire the many generations of students that would have been in her classroom. Her goal would have been to motivate them to make a difference in our island. And being a member of GCEC would allow her to live vicariously through these teachers that the board elects to serve the students of Guam. Additionally, her former position in the communications department of Bank of Guam has allowed her to visit different high schools and teach financial literacy classes. So, she would teach these kids near graduation about budgeting and spending, which is not something that, you would normally learn in a typical classroom environment. She's a well-rounded person. She can brainstorm effective and efficient solutions to problems that come her way. And at a young age, she's already well connected with the community. So I strongly feel that she's a great asset to GCEC and would help sustain the board's mission of selecting qualified educators for our island. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Race and Nicolas. So it seems that we don't have the individuals that signed up to give testimony. So we'll move. If there's no one else that would like to speak, if you'd like to speak, just go ahead and raise your hand. Okay, so since there's no one else that would like to give testimony for the appointees, we'll call on the appointees now for their statements. We'll call on first Dr. Cajigal.
Afternoon, everyone. I am Dr. Aldrin Kahigal. I am a third grade teacher at Guam Elementary School. Being nominated as a member of the Guam Commission for Education Certification is both an honor and a privilege. One of the purposes of this chapter is to provide a rigorous system of certification, professional development, and evaluation designed to support improved student achievement, the quality of the Guam educator workforce, and to improve student performance. Being an educator for the Guam Public Schools for almost 9 years helped me garner research-based theories, skills, and strategies that help with student achievement and teacher efficacy, which I've applied in my classroom. With that being said, I will bring these experiences to fulfill my duties as a member of the GCEC. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Kahigal. And now we will call on Mr. David Mercado. Mr. Mercado, I'm sorry, we can't hear you. Can you? He's unmuted, but it says you're unmuted, but we're not receiving anything.
Half a day.
There we go. Very good. We can hear you loud and clear now.
Buenas and half a day. My name is David Mercado Jr., an English teacher at Ukuru High School. For the past 8 years, I have been employed under the Guam Department of Education, serving as an English teacher in all grade levels of high school. After 2 years of teaching, I gained a sense of passion of speaking with students, understanding their needs, and seeing how education is slowly changing compared to when I was attending school. My role as their teacher grew into a role of an older brother or listener whenever students needed an ear. This new role inspired me to attain my master's degree in counseling in 2017 at the university as well. My love for the classroom and the variety of minds I teach every school year continues to today. I also add to my teaching belt with my career at the University of Guam as an adjunct professor. This nomination as a member of the Guam Commission for Education Certification is important to molding future educators, hoping that Guam maintains a strong retention of capable and highly qualified teachers. Guam is definitely changing, and so is the education system, and we will definitely need a strong back of educators as we tackle the new challenges of teaching, especially with technology as we start to open up to online education. Tying in my experiences as an educator and a homegrown Filipino-blooded Guamanian, I hope to bring new ideas to the table with the Commission. Sidus Masi.
Thank you, Mr. Mercado. And now we'll go with Chelsey, Ting, Nicolas.
Hey, can you guys hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Awesome. Hafaday, Madam Chair and Senators of the committee. I want to thank you for being here today and allowing me to speak on my behalf. I would like to thank the Magahaga for believing that I can fulfill this position to the best of my abilities. It really means a lot. My name is Chelsey Lynn Ting Nicolas. I'm 27 years old and I work in human resources as the Employee Engagement Manager at Bank of Guam. I married my high school sweetheart, and as the oldest sibling of 3 children, I take my role as a big sister seriously. I want to always be the best role model to them, particularly in taking advantage of opportunities that our school systems have to offer. I am a proud product of public school, and my education has always been important to me. I graduated from George Washington High School in 2011, and I then went on to continue my education at the University of Guam, where I graduated cum laude in 2015 with a bachelor's degree in business administration with my concentrations in marketing and economics. I have served in various organizations throughout my life. I graduated high school as the vice president of my class. And during my university years, I had active roles in student organizations, such as president of the American Marketing Association and public relations officer to the Seroptimus Sigma Society. Today, I serve as president of the UOG Alumni Association, where I partake in a role for the Regent Nominating Committee, as well as participate in co-chair initiatives to better the student experience, such as partnering with the UOG Endowment Foundation. Such initiatives that I partake in are like the G is for Giving campaign, which helps raise money for scholarships for students in various fields. I am also a member of the Guam Young Professionals, as well as the Omicron Delta Epsilon International Honor Society for Economics. They say to raise a child, it takes a village. And in my village, it consisted of 2 supportive parents, loving grandparents, and an extended family that was always there to go above and beyond. But I can't forget the teachers that have impacted my life, the counselors who believed in me, sometimes when I didn't even believe in myself, and the school administrators who always was there to guide me. Every village consists of educators. These are people who are part of the foundation that shapes a young mind. I think about my childhood and I think about the teachers who actively wanted to make a difference in a student's life. I humbly ask for your favor in allowing me to be a part of making that difference. Being a part of the Guam Commission for Educator Certification means that my purpose is to ensure that all who are certified understand that they are responsible for the education of our children and are competent to serve their duties. Educators hold so much responsibility in molding the minds of our future leaders. The impacts they do today affect the lives we live tomorrow. They're not only educators, but simply put, they're role models. Thank you for letting me speak today.
Thank you, Chelsey. Okay, now we will open up the panel for questions. And so we will start with Senator Shelton. Do you have any questions for any of our appointees?
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. Thank you to everyone for being here today, especially to our nominees, Dr. McNinch. Just like the chair of the Board of Education mentioned his experience with you as his teacher. You were also my teacher in both undergrad and when I got my master's at the University of Guam. And so I know you and I go quite a ways back, and you continue to be a mentor for me, a friend to me, an advisor to me now in my role in the legislature, obviously from the University of Guam. And I thank you for that. And I know that you have a great passion to serve on continue serving on the Board of Education. And I knew you not only from the University of Guam, but as a parent to Athena in the pageant circuit, and to see how passionate you were about ensuring the best life for Athena, and her being a role model to other young people and an ambassador of Guam was very inspiring, and you were always very supportive. And so you've served already on the education board, and you brought up many different issues that our young people are facing today. So I want to hear from you what will continue to be your priority on the board as we move into this, as we continue to adapt in this new time in our lives with the pandemic. You mentioned a lot about social media and the use of technology. If you can expand a little bit of that and what you see the board's role being in these new changes.
Thank you, Senator Shelton, and I certainly appreciate your kind words and your very good question. Nothing makes professors prouder than seeing their students do well, and Senator Shelton, you've done very, very well, and I'm very pleased and proud of the things that you've done. And I should point that out at the beginning. Ladies and gentlemen, with social media and emerging technology, we are facing forces that we could never anticipate. And we need to have healthy community conversations on this. We need to help our young people to know that they have to talk to people in person. They can't text to everyone all the time. There's no reason for a young person to be in the room next door to their parent and not talk to their parent. They want to text their parent. I know it sounds almost comical, but core social skills with people relying on core social skills that don't rely on technology. We need to have healthy community conversations about that. In terms of my service on the board, I believe in having and allowing management. There's a point, and it's in the law. There's a difference between being a micromanager on the board on the one hand and being aloof and uncaring on the other. There's a medium point, and hopefully in my service on the board, I've tried to meet that medium point where I'm not micromanaging, but on the other hand, I'm remaining aware and I'm remaining caring. I have to say, I worry about our young people all the time, not just my family members, but I'm talking about the future of our young people, how stable they are, how they're doing during this COVID pandemic, how they're having to struggle right now. And I know that we can help them to learn how to cope with these new swirling environments from both the pandemic and from the technology wave that we really haven't had healthy community conversations on. I believe that social media can make some people psychotic, and I'm not saying that lightly. That is, I think that some people can delve into these social media pages and lose themselves. And I'm very, very deeply concerned about that. I'm deeply concerned about people not making real social relationships and being socialized appropriately with other real human beings, including our youth. And so that's just, I hope that addressed your question, Senator, and thank you. If it didn't, I'd love to follow up. Thank you.
Thank you, Doc. It did. And you have my support here for your nomination. Thank you very much. Now to the teacher certification nominees, congratulations on your nominations to all three of you, Dr. Kahigal, to Mr. Mercado, and to Mrs. Nicolas. Madam Chair, I have to tell you that Mr. Mercado and Mrs. Nicolas are two longtime friends of mine. David was a classmate in college and a friend throughout high school. So I'm very happy to see them here nominated for these positions in the roles that they serve in our community right now. I know they'll bring that experience to the work that they'll do on the teacher certification board. And I was happy to hear David talk about bringing new ideas to the board to help ensure that we are setting really high standards for our teachers and also that we are holding teachers accountable for all of the responsibilities that they have with teaching our students, and that we are giving our students in our public school system the best education possible. So I know that it starts from ensuring that all of our teachers are certified and prepared to do the job, as well as us giving the support to our teachers where it's needed. So I'm happy to see all of these faces here and to hear of their commitment to this job, because it's not glamorous at all. It doesn't sound glamorous. There's not a big paycheck involved here, but it's going to take a lot of time and service. And so all these three young people with experience and passion, I'm sure will do a great job. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Senator Shelton. Senator Tidigui, is there any questions or anything you'd like to say?
Sijus Masi, Madam Chair, for the opportunity. And I'd like to thank everyone who's here today to, especially those to testify in favor of, or not in favor, but to testify in the first place. It takes a lot of courage to come up and be here today to testify for an individual, you know, and have the trust in that person to do a great job. So thank you to those testifying today and to the appointees. Congratulations first and foremost. With regards to the education certification, I think I'll ask the teachers who are teachers right now. That would be, Dr. Kahigal and David. How, you know a lot of teachers, and your job is to basically, determine the responsibilities, whether they're fit to be teachers, et cetera, like that. What happens if you happen to know the individual teacher that you're assessing? What would you do in that circumstances? David, we'll start with you, David.
If I am related or if I personally know the teacher? Yes. Yeah. I'm sorry, I'm getting nervous. Could you rephrase the question, please?
Okay, that's okay. That's okay. So basically, your position or the intent of this board is to determine whether those individuals responsible for the education of our children are competent to perform these duties as teachers, guidance counselors, or social or school administrators. So in the event when you're assessing this and you come across somebody who are related or a good friend of yours, how would you approach this when assessing them?
Well, just like any individual, related or not, I would look at their qualifications as individuals. I mean, on Guam or even in the public school system, you'd see friends who are working at schools because they're friends of this person or they're related to someone else. I think for the future of Guam, especially for the students, we still need to have this high level of understanding that teachers need to be accountable. And if it comes to a point where the relationship between you and some other individual kind of like goes against that, then at least there's clarification with that. Sorry, I'm getting lost in my words. I just want to make sure that every teacher that comes into I just want to make sure that every teacher that comes into the Guam Department of Education or even into the private schools, that they are at a standard, they're at a set standard, high standard, so that the students can exit the public school system or the private school system, knowing that they are fully equipped with whatever teacher has taught them. Does that make sense?
Yeah. How about this, David? Would you recuse yourself if there was a conflict of interest?
If there was if there was a conflict of interest, I think regardless, I would still look more at the qualifications.
Okay. Dr. Kajigal?
So pretty similar to what Mr. Mercado said, but I would definitely set boundaries. I would ensure that I separate my personal relationship and professional relationship. And in addition to that, I would have my colleagues there to help me and decide, okay, how can we resolve this issue? If there's issues in terms of evaluating, again, it really is putting on my professional hat on rather than my personal hat on.
Okay. Well, thank you for that answer. And Chelsey, as you have children in the school system currently?
I do not. I have no children.
Okay. Well, thank you so much for stepping up to the plate in this Educational Certification Board. It's probably your first time sitting on it. I wish you the very best. There's a lot to learn, and I'm pretty sure there are people who've been in this position that will provide you some kind of guidance and give you some kind of insight and experience on to what this entails to sit on this board. So thank you so much. Dr. McNinch, again, you're a very popular individual, and I'm sure you're very well, versed in the education system, as well as other things that we look forward to hearing your opinions on and stuff. So I greatly appreciate you deciding to step up to the plate on this appointee. Many times I hear from constituents who ask me questions to ask the individuals, so that are being put forth. And of course, this is coming from a constituent. And I guess if you can't answer it, then I have the superintendent of education who's here, or even the chairman of the Board of Education. But the position that you're filling is a position for who's employed in an upper level managerial position in a private business. So my question is, what is the definition for that, and what upper managerial position in a private business do you hold?
Okay. Thank you very much, Senator. And Senator Tello, I've known you for many years. I've actually known most of our senators for many years. And I should mention to the public, the senators probably know me a lot better than the general public does. And so the senators see a lot of the work I do as part of Ron McNinch Research and Training. And so I do a lot of and on my own, I have my own sole proprietorship. I've had a business license for the last 25 years. I've been a 2-time Rotary Club president. I've been active in the Guam Chamber of Commerce, active in the Guam Women's Chamber of Commerce. I'm a 2-time president of the Guam American unit, or Guam unit of the American Cancer Society, as well as a number of other community-related activities. Most of my work and practice centers on 3 areas. I am a sole proprietor. I've been a sole proprietor for many, many years. Most business professors at the School of Business and Public Administration have sole proprietorships because we are practitioners, not just academics. And so most of my practice on the practitioner side, I do a lot of training. There was a conflict of interest question you asked a little bit earlier. If I had a conflict of interest, I'd simply declare it. And if my peers had a problem with it, then I would recuse myself. But if I declared it, my peers didn't have a problem with it, that's the normal ethics call. I do training like that all the time, both on behalf of the government and on behalf of businesses. Also, I am quite often a hearing officer for workplace conflicts. I'm a senior professional in human resources, as well as a certified fraud examiner. I work a lot of fraud cases. A lot of it's quiet work. There's fraud everywhere here. You name it. You name the company, you name the business, somebody's stealing there. And that's just a fact of life. Shrinkage is 10 to 30% depending on the business we're dealing with. I deal with fraud all the time here for private businesses. Also, I deal with discrete human resources questions. I am an expert in equal employment opportunity. Also an expert in a number of discrete areas that aren't discussed as much, but are very, very active in my practice, such as pregnancy discrimination and the discrimination against women who have conditions related to pregnancy, which I do a lot of active consulting on. And a lot of my clients who have these issues will come to me, and usually I'm able to resolve it before any action is taken at all. But in general, I have my own business, and hey, it's Ron McNinch Research and Training. If you need a good consultant to get good work done at minimal cost, sometimes I do my work for free too. I do pro bono work. Thank you.
Well, I thank you.
Advertising, right? Yes.
Right. Thank you so much for that. I had no idea that you were sole proprietor, and I greatly appreciate it. And thank you for most especially for the pro bono work. Many of us in the legislature seek your guidance many times for different legislation and all around. So greatly appreciate it. And again, thank you for stepping up to the plate and continuing on wealth of knowledge and wealth of experiences that you can bring to this board. So, Sijus Masi, and thank you, Madam Chair, for the opportunity.
Thank you very much, Senator Tello Taitagui. Senator Joanne Brown.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. And I did have a similar question of Dr. McNinch that Senator Tello inquired. I didn't realize he had so many hats that he's working in addition to his work at the university. So I guess, I don't know, maybe technically he could fit into this position that he's being appointed to. But I think in general, I guess the expectation for that position was just someone that was full-time in the private sector versus having what I assume, maybe Dr. McNinch, you could correct me, I assume, are you a full-time employee at the University of Guam?
Yes, Senator Brown, I am. I'm full-time at the university, and I am, that's correct. Thank you.
Yeah, I understand. I mean, I guess maybe technically you might fit into this when you're private consulting. I understand other professors also, consult on other issues on their own, but yeah, I guess the expectation originally was to have someone who probably was full-time in the private sector fill the position. But I mean, I don't argue your credentials and your interest in wanting to contribute with regards to your appointments. So other than that, I don't really have any further questions, but I do want to thank, I don't have any individual questions for the appointees to the certification board. I mean, most people out of education don't even know what the certification board is or what it does. So I appreciate the enthusiasm of all of the appointees. You're all young and still have many good years ahead of you. I certainly wish you well, and certainly the importance of being able to, fairly evaluate your peers that are going up for certification. But, congratulations to you on your career choice and your interest in doing the work that you do. And I certainly wish you well in your appointments, and fairly optimistic that you'll be confirmed. So thank you very much. And thank you very much, Madam Chairperson, for the opportunity to comment.
Thank you, Senator Brown. Senator Tony Yada, do you have any remarks or any questions?
Thank you, Madam Chair. To Dr. Kahigal, Mr. Mercado, and Mrs. Nicolas, thank you all for stepping up to the plate and answering the governor's call to serve on the Educator Certification Commission. You definitely have my support, and hopefully in the future, you guys will be able to go up into different boards and commissions throughout the government. I think it's great that young leaders are stepping up to the plate and actually taking positions within this in our government. So again, thank you guys for taking those positions, and I look forward to voting on your confirmation. Dr. McNinch, once again, thank you again for taking this reappointment to the board. And you've always been there doing different, wearing different hats, and it's great to see you again coming out and supporting our folks in the education system. And I also look forward to voting for you on our next session. Thank you, Madam Chair, very much.
Thank you, Senator Ada. Senator Blas, do you have any questions at this time?
Thank you. That's okay. Thank you.
Okay, Senator Moylan, do you have any questions at this time?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Congratulations to all the nominees. Looking forward to also your names coming across so we can vote in favor of you during session. I do have one question for Dr. McNinch. Just to get your opinion there, recently we had a public law that allowed for a public-private partnership for the rehabilitation of the Southern High School auditorium. So that's moving along. We also have a bill for future public-private partnerships for the repairs and rehabilitation and maintenance of public school facilities. Just wondering how is your feeling towards these public-private partnerships, since you have a lot of workings with the Guam Chamber of Commerce, and do you see this as a necessity, or would you support these types of measures to help the maintenance of our public schools? What's your opinion on that, please?
Thank you very much, Senator Moylan, and always, as always, you always ask good questions. In general, I think that public-private partnerships, I'm a public administrator, and public administration is basically business management mixed in with the law and politics. And so it's about a third law and politics. I'm a major proponent of public-private partnerships. I'm a major proponent of government working with business to get things done and developing relationships, healthy relationships with the government, healthy relationships with the businesses. Because quite often, governments don't have the ability to do some of the things the government wants to do. So of course we have to have partnerships to assist us with that. For example, the university many, many years ago, I wanted them to buy Ladera Tower and turn it into a bunch of dorms. And we didn't have the capital for that. The only way we could, and this is, I'm talking like 23, 24 years ago, we didn't have the capital for that. We would have had to have formed a public-private partnership to do that. But there was no model in the law at the time to do that. And so these very dynamic, long-term strategic thinking, we're an island. We have finite resources here, but with public-private partnerships, working with businesses, we can do a lot in the public sector that we just couldn't do in the public sector alone. And I hope that addressed your question a little bit, Senator. Thank you.
It certainly did. After we get you nominated there, I'm going to make sure you get the invitation to come testify on Bill 4936 at the public hearing. So thank you very much. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Senator Moylan. And just for the record, I don't think your nomination or your confirmation is reliable on how you voice your preferences on certain bills, Dr. McNinch. So thank you for speaking on that. Okay, I believe we're just about done. Did I miss any of our senators? Okay, thank you. First of all, I'd like to thank all of the appointees for stepping up and for agreeing to serve. You know, to first comes the desire, and then understanding the challenges that will be faced before you as members of our community. And really, it's a almost gratis. You know, you're doing all of this out of your own freedom. And so I'd like to thank you, Chelsey, David, Dr. Kahigal, and Dr. McNinch for coming forward and saying, yes, you know, I'm here to serve the public, and most especially for our education system, for our teachers. So we look forward to your confirmation. And if there's anything you need to help the board or to help you, please do not hesitate to reach out to education. And so I'd like to think that those are one of our top priorities. And we will not hesitate if there's any assistance that you need as new members of the board. So we look forward to your confirmation. Thank you very much. We will now adjourn this confirmation hearing, and we'll go into a quick 3-minute break, and we'll come back online for our virtual information hearing with Guam Department of Education discussing SPED issues. Thank you very much. Buenas and half a day. Thank you everyone for being here. I'd like to thank the GDOE team for being present and for their patience. So we'll move forward. The Committee on Education and Infrastructural Advancement, Border Protection and Maritime Transportation, Guam Preservation and Self-Determination, and Federal and Foreign Relations will now convene this virtual information hearing, a continuation from February 23rd, 2021 virtual information hearing. Today is Tuesday, March 9th, 2021, and is 15:05. For the record, in accordance with open government law, public notices were sent via email to all senators, stakeholders, and all main media broadcasting outlets on Tuesday, March 2nd, 2021, and on Thursday, March 4, 2021. Notice was also provided on the Guam Legislature website. At this time, I'd like to thank all of the senators present today, Senator Shelton, who's the Vice Chair of Education, Senator Tony Yada, Senator Tello Taitagui, Senator Frank Blas. Is Senator Brown here? Yes. Okay, and Senator Joanne Brown. Thank you, senators, for being here today. Okay, so general rules of conduct. The host of this hearing will mute participants until called upon by the chair. When called to speak, please ensure that you are unmuted and that you are speaking into the microphone. Members of the committee wishing to speak may indicate via the in-app feature chat box. Individuals testifying will be acknowledged by the chair. And please, questions and testimony shall be confined to the substance or nature of the agenda. Personal inference as to the character or the motive of any senator or any individual testifying is not permitted. So colleagues, we are focusing on special education for the Guam Department of Education. And so if we could please stay on topic, this is the continuation for GDOE. And so I'd like to thank them for their participation today and also for the hearing on February 23rd. What we are going to discuss today is the status of special education curriculum and instruction, educational progress of students, support, training provided to families of students. One of the items is the efficacy of individualized education programs and parent coordination with one-to-one aids and behavioral intervention training for parents. And Mr. Superintendent and Mr. Chair, we have a large panel here with us today. So if you could please introduce everyone that is present that's representing the GDOE team and their functions and their roles in the Guam Department of Education. I will now hand it off to you, Mr. Superintendent. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman and members of the committee. I will try to do my best to introduce everyone as I see them on the screen, but I'll go ahead and start with our board members. I want to introduce Mr. Mark Mendiola, our chairman, Dr. Mary Okada, our vice chairwoman, and also Ms. Feli Angel, who is a member of our board. On the GDOE team, our management and our staff who are here today, I do have Deputy Superintendent Erica Cruz, who among her responsibilities, many responsibilities, does oversee special education. I also recognize Assistant Superintendent Yolanda Gabriel, who is the Assistant Superintendent for Special Education. So she is also present. And then also what I'll do is just from the ones I see, and I'll just go down the row. We have Miss Azurdi Rossetti, Dr. Azurdi Rossetti, who is principal of JP Torres Success Academy, but also has headed our Special Education Advisory Task Force for the department. We have Miss Therese Crisostomo from the Special Education Division, Ms. Kathy Tidinko from Special Education, Mr. Neil Rochelle, also from Special Education. We have Ms. Judy Roberto, who is a member of our task force and a teacher. We have Ms. Tricia Taitagui from Special Education, Principal Natasha De La Cruz, also a member of our task force. She's at MU Lohan. We have Ms. Noreen Guzman, a member of our task force. Leilani Keone, she is our HR administrator. She was here for the general hearing and the budget, the budget items and many other issues. But in case any HR issues do come up relative to SPED, she's here to listen in and be able to gather any data that might be requested. We also have Mr. John Kitachai. He's been very dedicated, even though this is a special education focus. He is our facilities and maintenance division administrator. We also have Ms. Doris Bukikosa, who leads our social workers, our outreach teams. We have Rachel Duenas from federal programs, and then Mr. Ike Santos, who was our federal programs administrator. And I believe, hopefully I've captured all of our team at GDO. We tried to go frame by frame. So I thank you for allowing us to be here today. And of course, with all issues in the department, there are so many people behind the scenes who are at work to try to address all the issues, opportunities, and challenges that present themselves. So we all are here to participate in the discussion and to be able to answer any questions you might have. I know this is a continuation and again, focused on special education, which I know we weren't able to get to on the 23rd. But I did want to just recall for everyone that we did submit, subject to your written request for information, a response to that request was sent on February 19th. I believe you have that document, and it was really addressed to get a status update for the unaccounted for students and also students with special needs. So the responses relative to special education are in that document and will form the basis of our presentation today. I don't know, Madam Chair, if you would like me to read through the responses at this point, or I'm happy to do that and then get into any questions.
Yes.
Following.
Thank you, Mr. Superintendent. That will work.
Okay, I know it's been some time, so I thought this would be a great opportunity to refresh everybody. First and foremost, there was information requested relative to unaccounted for students, and we gave you the general count where we started from over 2,500, near 3,000 really at the beginning of the school year, and steadily brought that number down through the hard work of our school administrators and staff and teachers. And then following that, our social workers jumped in to really help try to cross-check all the information we had in our student management system. And then when they were able to go out and conduct home visits to try to address the remainder. And these are students who were not really in contact with their schools prior to the start of the school year. And when we shut down face-to-face instruction, pursuant to the executive order, we really had to work hard to address their needs. For special education, the number of students that we needed to track, as you can see from the second table, the smaller table in our response, on September 2nd, we had about 656 students that still needed to be accounted for. And by February, the Special Education Division was able to account for all of the total active number of special education students. So they were very successful. And of course, we thank the parents and the families, members of our students who made sure to be in contact with their schools to try to provide as much as we could in terms of support during this pandemic year. At the onset of school closures, the GDOE SPED division provided guidance on the continuity of learning to school personnel and how we were supposed to support students with disabilities and their families during this very challenging school year. The guidance really stemmed from the direction received from the Office of Civil Rights, which requires school districts to provide a free and appropriate public education consistent with the need to protect the health and safety of students with disabilities and those individuals providing education, specialized instruction, and related services to these students. Exceptional circumstances may affect how all educational related services are provided, and schools may not be able to provide all services in the same manner they are typically provided. That is from OCR March 21st, 2020, and really sums up the challenges that we've had prior to the return of face-to-face instruction, which is when schools are physically shut down and no students are able to come on campus. It really has altered the way in which we've been able to support our students, recognizing, all of our students, but recognizing that our students who participate in special education or who receive related services are simply not able to avail themselves of all the services that they would normally be accustomed to and which we would be required to provide. So there was a lot of work that needed to happen to address this interim period. So as a result, a document entitled Hita para Motna, A Parent's Guide to Special Education During the COVID-19 Pandemic, was created to assist and support parents and guardians of children with disabilities through these challenging times. Parents and school personnel were urged to come together for the purpose of discussing the needs of their children with disabilities and to determine the best way in which education could be delivered. Depending on the model of learning selected, and remember at this school year, we've had 3 models of learning, including online, hard copy, and face-to-face instruction, with face-to-face instruction only returning on January 19th. So depending on the model of learning, parents together with their school teams were highly encouraged to review the individual education programs, the IEPs of their children to address several items. Could the IEP be delivered in its entirety given the selected model of learning? If not, which skills described in the goals and objectives would be prioritized? And which of the related services could be delivered and provided to the student given the selected model of learning? So prior to and during the opening of the 2020-2021 school year, we really were working to develop interim IEPs to delineate the priority skills and the prioritized skills of related services. Ongoing support was provided to teachers and one-to-one aides in the form of professional development, as well as training afforded to parents in a variety of topics every other week. To gauge the efficacy of the IEPs and parent coordination with one-to-one aides involved developing open communication between parents and school personnel. And of course, as we've recognized, the homeschool connection really has needed to be strong and consistent. With these special circumstances, parents have unknowingly taken on a lot of the responsibilities of the child's teachers. And in order to produce the desired results, parents and schools really needed to collaborate to meet the intended outcomes of the IEPs, of the interim IEPs. With reference to the support of of behavioral intervention training for parents, the GDOE implemented the Safe Crisis Management, which focused on managing highly agitated behavioral situations for those that escalate physically due to high distress, those with an emotional disability, those with autism, those with developmental disabilities or cognitive delays, and all students experiencing crises and duress. The need for behavior management best practices and implementation continue to increase in GDOE. Whether in the classroom or around the school campuses, the demand continues to multiply for all school faculty and staff. And to meet this challenge, the Special Education Division has conducted monthly training to meet requirements set forth by the Individual with Disabilities Education Act, IDEA, through the IEPs and consistent with local regulations on seclusion and restraint. Crisis management training has also been offered and attended by parents of students with special needs, as the strategies and interventions may be applicable in the home setting as well. There is training for parents focused on the autism disability spectrum that is forthcoming. The training will be provided by a consultant group that the GDOE established a contract with for professional services, with the aim of building a comprehensive ABA training for capacity building, of incorporating applied behavior analysis into educational programs for students with autism and other disabilities. With the onset of the contract earlier this year, preliminary work has been geared for classroom visits and other needs assessments to identify gaps and formulate a framework for solutions. Continuing professional development opportunities were provided to paraeducators over the course of 3 days during Christmas break. The 5 areas of focus during that time were on the IEP process, on working together, on technology, behavior management, and paraeducator roles or responsibilities. With these areas of focus, emphasis was placed on providing guidance to the paraeducators on how to support their students during distance learning. In addition to this, another emphasis was connecting and supporting the parents of our children with special needs. Additionally, the Division of Special Education has been proactive on providing opportunities for parent sessions twice a month for strategies and techniques in supporting their child. These sessions are recorded and shared in the event the parent is not able to attend the session. Attached and with the letter that we sent was the updated parent training schedule that could also be found on the GDOE SPED webpage. Finally, the Division of Special Education was able to conduct a quick survey as it relates to the use and effectiveness of paraeducator support. The survey window was short. However, the survey results have indicated the different range of education personnel who responded and give a sampling of the different views within the department. So with that, I mean, there is a copy of the survey results that were from February this year, and some of the recommendations provided to help improve supports for paraeducators. And with that, I also recommended training topics for future purposes. So with that, Madam Chair, that concluded our response to the questions that you sent us back in February. And we're here to answer any follow-up questions you might have as well. And we'll be happy to take those questions at this time. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Superintendent. I appreciate your testimony and the detail of it. In the previous, in the very first hearing that we had, you slotted 82 one-to-one aides to hopefully get them full-time positions. And so what is the current, how are they currently funded right now, the one-to-one aides?
So the vast majority of the one-to-one aides are federally funded and are on a limited term part-time basis.
Okay, and how many years have they been federally funded on a limited term part-time basis?
Let me ask Ms. Gabriel if she can, she or her staff can provide that information.
The number of years of the part-time limited aides varies. But I can give you a complete breakdown on how many aides that are being currently supporting our students. So currently there are only a total of 21 school aides position that support our students with special needs that are locally funded. And currently we have a total of 425, and that would be out of the 425 school aides position, 362 are functioning as a one-to-one aides, and the rest are program aides. So most of these positions for the federal funds, we have only a total of 48 federally funded school aides that are supporting the special eds. So the rest are considered as limited term part-time.
Okay, thank you. And I'd like to transition into the ED room. Have we finally filled the positions for the ED room teachers, or are you still having difficulty ensuring that you have ED teachers to service our ED students, especially as we transition into face-to-face?
Currently, we don't have a full-time ED teacher. So what the schools have provided support to the program is to have their existing full-time teachers to teach during their prep time, so that all the subjects that needed to be attended by these students would be provided by a full-time teacher. So it's being covered by teachers during their prep time.
Okay, and is there a solution on how we're going to move forward to ensure that there's a continuity, and so teachers are not giving their prep time to be in the classroom, but you have a dedicated teacher for this particular service?
We continue to kind of ask support from our GDOE Human Resource Office, because the position currently exists and needed to be filled up.
Say that again, Mrs. Gabriel, I'm sorry.
We are still currently working closely with our GDOE Human Resource Office for teachers who would be interested to fill up the vacant position for an ED teacher.
And is there a timeline? I think we talked about this, right, for the past year and a half, if I can recall correctly. And so we're anticipating, is there any additional incentives that we can give for the ED room teachers, and if there was a timeline to fill these positions?
So from my understanding, if there will be an applicant who would be interested in the position, Special education teachers are also qualified to request for above step. So that would be some sort of something to entice, new people to join the department. So they could ask for an above step position.
Okay, so it's just one increment that
I think, Madam Chair, in the regulation, it is supposed to be a maximum of until step 10. And it would be dependent upon the Board of Education to kind of make the approval for the above step hiring or employment.
And can you give us the timeline on when we anticipate these positions to be filled?
Madam Chair, I've been hoping that this position can be filled at once, but the challenge that we have right now is truly if there is an applicant, a teacher applicant at the Human Resource Office, it's still the discretion of the applicant to choose where they would like to be assigned for their teaching assignments. So this has been continued a challenge to us. Previously, how we are able to get teachers is, of course, I have a leadership staff person, but currently he's away, who's very good in recruiting, teachers, existing teachers who would be interested in the positions. So right now, that has been continued our challenge. But rest assured that even though the vacancy exists, the educational support that is provided to these ED students under the ED program are being provided by a full-time certified teacher that is also a teacher within the school.
Right. So I understand that that's the approach that you have to deal with right now. And so I'm just concerned that, even especially the ED students, they need some kind of continuity. And so it's difficult for them also to be able to trust the teacher. If the teachers keep on changing out, if the teachers are filling those positions during their prep time. And I also think it's a lot for a teacher to give up their prep time for their other classes to navigate to teach our ED students. And so,
Madam Chair, if I could add, I mean, you're absolutely right that this has been a question over the last year or so when we started to address the vacancies that arose in the ED classes. And the challenges we've gone through the analysis and the challenge of looking at involuntary transfer of teachers into, in terms of meeting that need and placing a teacher. But as we review all of our rules and as we maintain vacancies in all parts of the department, typically what happens is that the teacher is afforded the opportunity to choose another, to go into an available vacancy. And as you know, I know you're well aware, of course, that it takes a particular type of teacher who has the skills and the commitment to want to enter and take on an ED class. And that this has really been an issue over the last maybe 12 to 18 months, where it's been most of the issue. I think for us, we've been shut down for most of the school year. So, it hasn't been an issue at the school, but of course, coming back to school, it is something that we have to deal with again. But we were lucky enough to have teachers who volunteered to teach during their prep period. Now they do get compensated for that. So that is a type of incentive. So we've been lucky to be able to have teachers who are willing to teach on their prep time, who are compensated and to meet the requirements of a certified teacher for those students. So so I just want to rest assured that they are not they are compensated for that time, and it is a volunteer it's a volunteer opportunity. So those teachers who stepped up are doing it with an incentive, but also with a commitment to meeting the need of the school. So we're grateful for that. Yeah, at the same time, your point is we need to make sure that we're effectively recruiting and trying to find our candidates who meet those requirements. As Ms. Gabriel said, one of our lead experienced staffers at special education is now on duty as part of the island's response to COVID-19. But he's really been effective, and we look forward to his return. And we'll definitely, as we start to reopen more for face-to-face, pick this issue up again and see if we can find new candidates who might be interested in taking that on.
Thank you, Mr. Superintendent. And I'm sure that the board also probably is aware of this. And perhaps if there's additional training to give teachers to help them to understand the role of the ED, and of the role of an ED teacher, and then perhaps improve the incentives for them to commit to it. I think that if they are given the resources and the tools and the incentives to fill the position, I'm sure that you will find some teachers that would be willing to do that. And I'm sure you've probably thought of that. So I'm hoping that we have some of our teachers or those that apply are really interested in filling these positions. So yes. And then can we talk about the contract that you have with Tiny Eye? Can you explain the role of Tiny Eye? I believe it's a contract for someone based in Canada. And so can we just talk a little bit about that and explain that role and the services they give to the students?
Okay, Therese?
Okay. Hi, Senator. So for Tiny Eye, it is a company based out of Canada, and they provide teletherapy services, not just to Guam and the CNMI, but also nationwide in various states. And so in order for any of their therapists, which we get services from, they have to be licensed with our Guam Allied Health. So any therapist that Tiny Eye does place to provide services for our students with disabilities who need speech therapy or occupational therapy, they're all licensed through our Guam Allied Health. So they meet all of the qualifications in order to provide the services here. So they do evaluations, they attend IEP meetings, they provide consultation, training, and support in addition to the direct therapy. And so a lot of the therapy services are through teletherapy because that's what it is, and which is not much different from what some of our therapists are doing right now, because even though we do have on-site therapists on Guam, some of them are still providing services to students via teletherapy because of the model of learning that the families have selected. So not all of our students are on-site face-to-face. So they do provide the services to those kids via teletherapy. So it's very much like what Tiny Eye is doing.
Thank you, Mrs. Crisostomo.
Yeah.
And so for this, has it always been teletherapy, or is it just because COVID that this is the way that the children are getting their services through this?
Okay, for occupational therapy, it's because the department no longer has an occupational therapy as part of its staffing pattern. We did have 2 occupational therapists, but they're both military, and so of course they're no longer with us. They PCS'd. And then for speech therapy, it's because Guam did not have the enough on-site speech therapists to deliver therapy, and so we needed additional personnel to fill that need. So right now, all of our elementary schools are receiving on-site, speech therapy from an on-site Guam DOE therapist. It's mostly our middle schools and our high schools who are getting the teletherapy. So we've tried to do early intervention with all of our students with an on-site Guam DOE therapists.
Okay, and how has the scheduling been for the parents, the CRTs, and for the students to get them the service that they need? Has there been any difficulty scheduling with this offsite companies?
I would like to say that there haven't been any challenges, but of course there are. There's going to be a lot of hiccups because of the time differences, but a lot of the therapists are very accommodating. And if they get advance notice of any type of meeting that needs to be scheduled, we've had quite a few therapists who are up at 1 a.m. their time to attend an IEP meeting or to attend a staff meeting or whatever meeting that is needed. So they are very accommodating with the parent schedules. And if there isn't a therapist who's able to accommodate the parent schedule, I typically have a monthly meeting with the president and the founder of Tiny Eye every month. In fact, I have one with them tomorrow. And it's to determine whether or not another therapist would be needed to make the accommodation. So the therapists have been able to provide therapy even on a Saturday or a Sunday, depending on what the parents, depending on the availability of the parent's schedule, because someone does need to be with the child, either in the school or in the home. So that way they're able to connect, connect via using their computer devices, and just to make sure for accountability purposes that someone is there in the room should there be any issues that come up.
Okay. And so the rotation of speech therapists that you have, do you have Tiny Eye servicing, you said the middle school and the high school?
Correct.
And then you have, okay. Is there, has there been any challenge there, especially for those that are more severe on the spectrum of DHH, or has this been a seamless transition for every grade and every student to do this type of therapy over, I guess, I don't know what platform you would use. Do they use Zoom or do they use Microsoft Teams?
Yeah. Right now they're using Zoom, but Tiny Eye has its own platform. It's called the Monarch platform. And I really wish I could say that there have not been any challenges, because like anything else, even with our GDOE therapists, there have been quite a few hiccups. We're working through those challenges. And like I said, if there's anything that does come up, we do discuss it in our monthly meetings. And also, like I said, it happens to even our Guam therapists. So I can't honestly say that there have been no challenges because there have been, but we do work through them.
Okay, thank you. I guess there was some concern with our stakeholders about the level of service that is being given to them via this contract through Tiny Eye. And so
understandable, ma'am. It's very understandable because this is very brand new. But I'll be honest with you, with the onset of teletherapy, once COVID hit, Tiny Eye was the first of all of our service providers to provide in-home, at-home services. And so I do get a monthly report from them, and sometimes it's on our end when we talk about connectivity issues or that parents don't show up for scheduled sessions. Sometimes it is on Tiny Eye's end because of the platform issues and connectivity, but that's very rare, very few and far between. But I do get those reports. And so I've been contacting the schools, because if a parent misses a session or if a school misses a session, once 15 minutes passes, we get charged for that. And so we really try to make sure that we keep those sessions and that the fault of not attending a session is not on our end. Because if the connectivity is on Tiny Eye's end, they won't charge us for any of those services.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Mr. Superintendent, and I just wanted to state for the record that we saw an editorial on the in the news, I believe just about a month ago now, about the efficiency of GDOE's special education services. And so, this is just part of the public to know what GDOE is doing and some of the loopholes or the gaps that are trying to be filled to provide special education services for our students. All right, thank you, Mrs. Crisostomo. I appreciate it.
Just a brief comment on that. I mean, I think it's been very I mean, obviously, when we were shut down for face-to-face, that really presented the toughest challenge because expectations are, from the parents and, from the schools, there's an expectation of trying to support the student under the IEPs, but not being able to provide services in the same way. So that really limited our ability to provide services, at least with face-to-face. When we were planning it for last August, there would have been an option. So now that face-to-face is open again, we have been seeing our students return to face-to-face, not all of them, but there have been those who have been willing, and some of them are, based on their IEPs, are coming in multiple times a week to receive services. So that's given us some light at the end of the tunnel to get them back on the school campuses eventually, and as we gradually expand the face-to-face opportunities, that'll be really an opportunity to try to address this. My understanding as well, to the staff, is that the parents may opt not to accept the teletherapy, right? I mean, they don't have to. They can choose not to go with teletherapy if they would like. We don't force them if they're not comfortable with it. So that's been an option. However, as the team recognizes, that was the option and discussion before COVID-19 hit. Now with COVID-19 and the pandemic and the shutdown, teletherapy has been one of the mechanisms to at least provide service during a time where you can't do the physical one-on-ones. So we'll have to learn from that, I guess, as we go forward. Learn from that, and like you said, find the right role and place for teletherapy as we go forward, and still have to deal with all the safety requirements. And for those who do opt to stay online, this may be the way we can continue to provide support. So we'll evaluate that as we go forward.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Superintendent. It's good to know that the stakeholders have the option whether they want to receive this teletherapy or do they want to receive this face-to-face interaction for their child. So as long as the parents are given that I think that would be a good mitigation on that part. Okay, I'll open it up now to the senators if they have any questions. Senator Shelton, do you have any questions at this time?
Thank you very much, Madam Chairwoman. I don't have any questions at this time. I appreciate all of the discussions. Many of the questions I had were answered in the conversation before, so I'll continue listening. Thank you very much to the team for being here and the work that you continue to do, especially in response to the pandemic and adapting to these new ways to help our students. Sijus Masi.
Thank you, Senator Shelton. Senator Tony Yatta, do you have any questions at this time?
No questions at this time, Madam Chair. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Senator Brown, do you have any questions or any comments?
Just one question, because it was certainly very informative listening to the presentation this afternoon, but I just wanted to ask the school superintendent. I certainly appreciate the information provided to the committee with regards to the updated list on students that have been contacted since last September. But I wanted to inquire with those students that kind of been out of the loop and maybe were not able to be engaged in their coursework for this past school year. How are they being brought up to speed, for example, if they were out of the loop because they weren't able to connect with them, or they might have not had Wi-Fi, or whatever the case may be, to kind of get them up to speed with their studies for this school year under the challenging circumstances you've all had to deal with as well?
Yeah, Senator, thanks for that question. I think the answer, if I can just be candid, there is a broad spectrum of need that has emerged from this pandemic here, and it does extend to those who were just out of contact, not at all reachable for many months during the start of the pandemic. It also extends to those who are connected, but we know may not have consistently been engaged in their model of learning. And then now that we're back face to face, we're now having to deal with assessing where each student is at and trying to bring them, up to where they need to be. So I can't say definitively where we're at with, because we haven't been able to assess all students, given the fact that we are not anywhere, close to being out of this situation. The strategy is to get the kids back to school as much as possible, have them interacting with their teachers, our teachers be able to assess their progress and their current the current levels at this point, and then with the help of additional interventions over the summer, after school, and through the next school year, be able to really address what we talk about as learning loss. But right now, it has been so difficult because everything we're asked to do is in large part 70% of our kids are still out of school. We're doing it from home. So even assessing their work at home is not really a fair way of gauging their progress. So it is on the forefront of what we need to do. And we've been discussing with our board, how do we maximize face-to-face instruction, maximize the number of kids who can come back to our schools, multiply the number of days they can go to school, and steadily extend that as we head into next school year, so we can do the hard work of bringing all those kids back to where they need to be. But we're not there yet. I can only say that for the students who were put back in contact with the schools, we're relying then on the teachers and the administrators to gauge where they're at, where they at in terms of catching up, and be able to address their needs at the classroom level. But we know that the bulk of this job is going to happen once we welcome more students back to the classroom. Because even if they're online, we have stories of kids who are online, but they don't come on. They might not come on consistently. They might not show up for several days, or they might be disengaged. And so just because they're in contact and they're registered and they came on early on in the quarter, that may not mean that they're meaningfully making progress, because of the fact that they're just not in class, and there are so many factors that are kind of out of our control. Same thing with hard copy. So I don't know if Doris Bukakosa, if you want to add anything. She's been the leader of our social workers and trying to really deal with the individual family situations and trying to get their kids back. But if we can answer any more questions on that front. But I just want to say we're not really at a point where we understand the full consequences of what this year has wrought. But I think if we can maximize the number of kids who can come back in school for assessment and for intervention, that's where we want to be. That's what we're trying to do.
Yeah, I was just curious about that, because you're right, it might be all at different levels. And you mentioned obviously a number of the students have been out for some time. I'm just curious how that will be addressed, or whether or not it's going to impact students moving on to the next grade level, or whatever the case may be. I can imagine how difficult for students that are on their senior year, and we're looking forward to having that final senior year in school, and how that would affect them. But just a little curious, because we're almost a few months from what we look at as the end of the school year for summer. And I know there's this pandemic has thrown us a lot of challenges, and certainly DOE is a very big organization with so many students to take care of and keep track of. And it's just that question just came up, is how would you deal with that, to feel they met their coursework for this, whatever grade level they're in, so that they can be promoted on to the next grade level. So
we're gonna do our best to do an assessment. We're using, right now we're preparing to implement ACT Aspire, which is our district-wide assessment. Of course, we may be challenged in doing that for those who are not on campus, but we're going to at least be able to do it for those who are face-to-face, to get a sense of where we are in terms of the impact of COVID-19. But again, I think that the strategy has to be reopen our schools, get the kids back, to school, expand. But what we're planning to do for our summer school is to expand the availability and access and the numbers of students who are able to go to summer school, so we can begin that process of helping those who need the help. Looking at after school programs, next year, throughout the school year, and doing it at all levels, not just at the elementary level, but also looking at middle school. And then of course, credit recovery. We're hearing from students who I guess are, like you said, on track for graduation, but due to the pandemic find themselves a credit or two behind. We want to provide and expand the credit recovery opportunities through night school and through summer school as well, to try to graduate them, close to on schedule. So we're working through that right now. But again, Senator, it's, we can have all the strategies in the world, but if they're not with us, it's very difficult to execute those strategies. And we don't believe that we can do that, do what's necessary all from a distance. I think we've learned and we're doing our best. But online is not for everybody. And so even with technology coming and trying to accommodate the families who are still afraid to come back to school, I think the strategy has to be to raise confidence, in returning to school, to make sure our schools are safe and to keep the community safe so that we can get the kids back, into the classrooms. And that's where the work will take place between the teachers and the students to get them back on track.
Well, thank you very much, Superintendent Fernandez. I know you got a tremendous task on your hands, but certainly appreciate your insight with regards to that. And I know at some point I'm going to want to learn more about the teletherapy. That's fascinating to know that that's available. I'm sure for certain students that might have very special needs that may not be part of the standard training, or as you mentioned, just the challenges of trying to get professionals in this field to be able to assist our students. So it's nice to know that this is another avenue that's available, and maybe at some point we can further discuss and see what the success rate of this is with our students. But thank you very much again to the superintendent. Thank you very much, Madam Chairperson, for the opportunity to be able to ask these questions.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Senator Brown, for those questions. Those are really good questions. Senator Ada, do you have anything?
None, Madam Chair. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Senator. Senator Blas, do you have any questions or any comments?
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Superintendent Fernandez, as well as everybody that's on in this hearing. John, in line with the inquiry from Senator Brown, obviously, I think you all know I've got some kind of a vested interest in this whole process. Okay, and I see a lot of people smiling, and along those lines, I guess for me, a frequent discussion is okay. It's one thing to bring the kids back into school and to raise the confidence level and to ensure the parents that it's a safe learning environment. But there's still the question of whether or not, as you said, there's difficulty right now in the assessment of what the kids are learning, and in some cases, how much credit they've been able to receive. That said, though, and let's talk about the other spectrum. There are obviously some that truth be told, I see this firsthand. Okay, that there are sometimes you have that they're online or hard copy or even face to face, but there's almost the I guess the understanding, if you will, that moving on to the next level is going to be automatic, and I'm a little concerned at that. I'm not saying this from an education institution standpoint. But let's be honest, this is probably something that is being brought up, in the community, maybe by some parents and some students. That, so long as I check into to my online learning, and so long as I pick up my hard copy paperwork, no matter what happens, I'm going to get onto the next level, and that concerns me. And granted, maybe we still have some time to catch up, but. We may, and I'm concerned that we may lose that opportunity to be able to, to give our children that education that is expected. We can, I'm sure we're having difficulty already meeting some mandates, and as far as the number of days required, the number of hours, the content, but what about what the child is learning? It really is. It's disheartening for me when even at this level that you've got a fifth grader who it's very difficult for them to comprehend second grade level work with the notion that in a few months they're moving on to the sixth grade. So can you expand a little bit more? Okay, and as far as what can be expected and timeline as to when this decision is going to be made as to whether or not these kids are going to be moving on.
Right. Right now, at this particular point, pending more discussion and perhaps with the board or with the legislature. The plan is to move the students forward and not penalize them for the pandemic, but to, again, through interventions, almost look at ways to increase the dose of teaching and learning that they should be receiving over the next year and a half, 2 years, as a matter of trying to recover. Now, the issue for us is that that discussion that you're raising is, of course, a long-standing discussion that happens and is very as a challenging discussion in the normalist, in the most normal of times. During COVID-19, it's even more of a poignant question, but it's also a global question. It's definitely a national question. So, I don't have the answer for that. It's certainly something to ponder. The board I'm sure will want to discuss, how we are going to solve this issue, whether it's through retention or through, intervention, going forward. But I got to tell you that this doesn't just end in high school. I was part of a very prestigious scholarship, interview panel. And among the guidance that we received was, hey, these are top performing students, but but given all the grading issues, given the pandemic, given the shutdowns, when you look at their transcripts, we can't gauge them the way we would normally gauge others in a normal year, because you have to recognize the fact that everybody has been impacted, and now adjustments are going to happen even at the college university level. So, we're not sure if they're going to continue to use the SATs, this year as an admissions requirement. The GPAs are going to have to be looked at in a different way, because it affects everybody, all the way into post-secondary. And so we're all going to have to do that same type of assessment. Are we going to, give everybody a break and recognize the pandemic? Are we going to hold them back and try to catch them up? It's a great discussion. It's a good discussion. And, we don't have the answers right now. At this point, our focus is on what are the right interventions? How do we increase the dose of education to reach more students and see if we can get them back into school, which I think is number one. If we go through this situation and we have a large segment of our population out of school and online for the next year, that's really going to be even worse. I don't think the discussion is going to be, should we hold them back 2 years? It's going to be more about what do we need to do to get the kids back in class for those who can't return. That's really the ultimate strategy that's become more urgent for me. And I think after watching our teachers and staff work to try to figure out how to do hard copy and online and face-to-face, we recognize the shortcomings that are all over, and not just with us, with every other school district that's trying to make this rapid shift. We love technology, but we're not at a point where it substitutes for good old-fashioned teaching and learning in the classroom. And we want to protect our teachers and we want to protect our staff, but we want to get to a point where ultimately our kids can safely come back to the class. I really think that's really the solution. Let's focus on that. And we certainly could use your help. And we're going to be looking at our federal funds to figure this out. How can we maximize the number of kids who can come back, be together with the teacher in the classroom, get that direct attention, get that direct assessment and intervention, so that we're not trying to navigate this important, these important questions while we still have 70% of our kids at home. That's not a good situation. So I think our board has really pressed us. We can't just turn the ship with a flip of a switch and bring everybody back tomorrow. But we are putting together our plan for how we get them back to school as much as possible in next school year. And that's the best opportunity for us to like a doctor, you can do as much teletherapy, but sometimes that direct, one-to-one interaction is going to be what you need to really get the attention you deserve. So like you said, with teletherapy, we're going to see how well it works. But there's a lot to be said about ensuring that if our students need that direct one-on-one, it's available to them. So we're going to work very hard to try to reopen our schools and make that the core strategy for getting our kids back on track.
Well, thank you very much. And I have to agree with you. I think that working to get the kids back safely, and happily back into school with the confidence and assurance of not just the kids, but the parents and the faculty and staff. We got to watch out for them too as well. And I know that, when the discussion of what to do next and how are we going to ensure that our kids are getting the proper education in this environment, and I know that the word retention can be not just controversial or bring shudder down the spines of many. If I can suggest that maybe we don't focus on a retention but an extension, so that in the extension of it, you're not necessarily holding them back. You're just making sure that there's progress forward. And so, and maybe we can have another discussion another time on this. But I see that as an issue, and I know this is worldwide. I know this is not a problem unique to us here. However, we are responsible for what we have here, and I think that you got some great minds here.
No, absolutely. Senator, I mean, we have on the board, like I said, our parents, we have former teachers, we have the head of the Guam Community College who's going to be interested in the same issues that we have. So they're
going to go over to her next.
Yeah, no, yeah, absolutely. So I think, your questions are definitely on the forefront of, and will, I'm sure, continue to spur a discussion amongst the board when we start talking about what is the right level of intervention and how to do more to ensure our kids can have an opportunity to catch up. So I thank you for that. I mean, it really is an important question. We don't have necessarily the answers right now. I mean, for me, my concern is that, again, 70% of our kids aren't at school. So it's like asking the mechanic to fix your car, but you can't bring the car over there. So, they can guess, but what to do. But I think we really need to get the car in the shop. So we got to bring our kids back to the school so we can make sure that we are paying attention, getting an understanding of their situations. I mean, a lot of our kids come from different experiences during COVID-19, and we're going to have to come to terms with that and what they've gone through, and then map our way out, forward as to how we're going to try to get them back on track. And I think, Dr. Okada, I think on this, as also in our other capacity as head of GCC, we're going to have that conversation with her and with Dr. Christ at UOG, because as we hand these kids over, we're all going to be dealing with the same impacts of what's happened. And we're going to have to try to figure out not just how to get them on track for a diploma, but eventually we want them to get their associates or their 4-year degrees. And we got to make sure they've earned that as well. So thank you for that question, and we'll continue to work to see what we can provide in terms of solutions.
Well, thank you very much, and thank you everybody for attending. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Senator Blas. Senator Tidigui, do you have any questions at this time, or concerns or comments?
Nothing at this time. I'm enjoying the conversation and the information. Thank you so much.
Okay. I believe that we've addressed every senator here for questions. Mr. Superintendent, I just want to ask one last question. The situation with the social workers at GBOE, how is that going? Are you in need of more social workers, or are you planning to improve the services for social workers? I know you lost some during the pandemic to other areas, right? Like I think public health or something. So what is a plan moving forward for our social workers?
Well, that's, there definitely is a need for the types of supports that our social workers have brought to the table. And we had them reporting to public health as part of the public health emergency. And for most of that emergency, I believe until December, they were on the front lines helping the public health to manage the isolation and quarantine facilities. And I believe they were involved in contact tracing and so forth. And I have to just thank them for that publicly here before you, because everything I heard back from public health and from the governor's office was really kudos to the social workers that we have here at GDOE. They have the training, they have the skills to jump right in there and to work with people in highly stressful situations. But unfortunately, we also need them here at DOE because, especially maybe now it's been a little bit less of a urgent, not less urgent. I mean, because our kids are coming back face to face. But as we make plans to maximize the number of students who can return, we know that the situations that we're going to face as we get our kids back is going to need our social workers' involvement as we deal with basically kids who are trying to recover from a traumatic situation and coming back to schools and may act out behaviorally or in other ways just due to the experience. So we haven't really talked about exactly how much more in terms of personnel. But, obviously our budgetary issues are very difficult. But I know Doris Bukikosa, is here, and she's really been involved in leading our social workers. And also some of them are, work for Yolanda as our SPED social workers. So they might be able to add, I don't know if they want to add anything else in terms of, what they foresee as the challenges heading into next school year. Doris or Yolanda?
Hi, sir. Thank you, Madam Chair, and the superintendent, senators, for the opportunity to speak. So definitely, we're seeing different challenges. The parents are still definitely fearful and anxious about the whole COVID situation. Those that are choosing not to have their children return to face-to-face and opting to either maintain online or, again, opting with the hard copy, even though they understand that specific model of learning is not the best option. But for them, the issue of safety, even though we have all of our protocols in place and are providing as much PPEs and other safety measures to ensure that we keep the kids, all of our students and our employees safe, there's still the anxiety there. And of course, we're providing supports to the parents and the families through our social and emotional wellness supports. But again, we can tell them everything there is to know, but if they still personally do not feel it's safe enough for their children to leave their homes and come out into the schools, we have to respect that and their choice to keep the kids from coming back face to face. Aside from that, of course, with all of the economic challenges, parents losing hours or even their jobs, because of all the businesses shutting down, we have to keep that in mind that they can't afford a lot of things, and what kind of supports can the department do for the parents. Of course, working with the shelters, when we find that the students and the families are actually ending up in the shelters or street homeless, how can we get or network with other agencies and programs to get assistance to the families? We're definitely seeing a lot more of that. But as the superintendent mentions, even with all the additional complicated cases that are occurring, we have to keep in mind that we really don't have the funding. Our project alone only funds 12 workers, 12 social workers and 12 community program aides. On the SPED side, there's different divisions or sections, I need to say. So the ED program, Guam Early Intervention, that are actually having social workers in those specific areas. So while we may have those challenging cases, I don't think our funding has necessarily changed to allow us to hire more personnel. So really what's happening is our caseload, even if the caseload may not be increasing, the type of cases are more complicated, making it much more challenging for us. But we will do what it takes to help our families and our students. That's all we can do, really. And I know if the superintendent or even Mr. Santos with federal programs had the opportunity for us to increase those numbers, they would definitely support us, not just on the outreach side, but even with the special education side. They have been very supportive of us throughout the entire time. And prior to, and of course, March is Social Worker Month. So viva to the social workers. I just have to put that plug in there. But I know we have always been supported tremendously by our department and our division. So that's the best I can say, honestly, for that.
Yeah, and I think the situation is similar to the nurses. Right? I mean, I think what we're hearing, of course, on the island-wide, there are shortages of both nurses and social workers. So, I guess part of our position on this is we're very happy that our social workers work here at GDOE and our nurses work at DOE and work with our kids. We would love to get more support. We're just not sure about. I mean, I think for some, I think at least right now, the focus is on trying to provide at least some administrative support if we can. With knowing that Doris right now is basically trying to hand out all the PPEs, through her management and through her team to all the public and private schools. So that's one of her projects. But again, long term, we're looking at what the solutions are, because we typically don't like to use one-time funding, to hire a permanent employee. I mean, that's part of trying to be fiscally responsible and not end up at the end of the day with the inability to afford the employees. But again, I think we're going to realize that there's going to be a lot next school year, a lot of need out there, whether it's on our nurses or social workers side, that we're just going to have to monitor. And if at the point we need to really just get to it and start hiring more, recruiting more, then we'll have to do that. But it's going to really depend on our resources, and I just anticipate the needs will be much higher. Again, I lump them both together because I know our nurses, they're going to have their normal jobs where the kids just, if you ever go to an elementary school during the day, the kids who would just line up at the nurse's office with their, I got a tummy ache or whatever it else is, much less, helping with the COVID-19, responses and monitoring at the school. Same with the social workers. The kids coming in we already have a high need, but now coming back from this type of experience, we fear for our families, knowing that over the past year we may not. I would just say that the referrals, of course, they've gone down because we don't see our kids. So it might look good because we don't have the number of referrals, but we can anticipate that when they return, we may just have, that to confront, I guess, a number of referrals based on the needs of kids coming back from, a variety of situations. So we'll monitor that and then, continue to work to see what our nurses and social workers need.
Okay, thank you very much. Yes, there's been some concern, that the caseload for the social worker there's a lot involved. And so it's a very unique job. I mean, psychologically and, physically, you got to hand it to those that have the ability to be a social worker. It's a very challenging job, to say the least, and so I want to make sure that if we can, Mr. Superintendent, really monitor these things to see what our students need, the community needs through GDOE for improving the availability, or if there's any gaps that we need to fill for our social workers in order to hire more, because the stress is just, it's huge on them. And so if we can look for areas to alleviate some of, the load and share the load with them and hire more people, hire more social workers, or even train those that are interested in social work, that would be, a request that I would ask for GDOE. And if we can work together to see that we can get that funding for those permanent employees, because I have a couple friends that are social workers, and it's not easy for them, and I really feel for them, because I wouldn't know how to navigate through that kind of environment. And so, we're really grateful for them.
Thank you for all those kind words, and what happens then. They're very there's a lot of stress, a lot of pressure, but when they go out on assignment, they have all the tools that they need to do a good job. And what I found was when they've been detailed to the front lines, I mean, they're almost just relying on the social workers. They just say, go out and go do it. And I'm thinking, what kind of support? They're almost leading some of their areas, because, and I think it just reflects very well, even though they're very stressed, we know you'll be proud of them, because they've gone out there and just jumped in with the training.
Yes.
the experience necessary to really aid the community, and that's been really good to see.
Yes, so thank you for that, and I appreciate that. We're going to monitor this and see what we can moving forward. I just have one more ask. If we could focus on seeing that what would be a good incentive to fill those ED classrooms up. It's been about 1.5 years. I know, Mrs. Gabriel, you're trying, and I appreciate, your continued work, and also the SPED, the team, their continued work. You guys work so hard. And, we're very grateful for the amount of work that you do and the stressors of the job that you need to endure, to making sure that you meet the legal requirements and also to service the student and the child. So please know that we are very grateful for everyone that is working in these positions, and also to the GDOE team for stepping up, especially during this pandemic, really, I guess, taking the bull by the horns. And it seemed like you were jack of all trades during the pandemic. And so I want to thank you for the outstanding work that your team has done, Mr. Superintendent. And with that being said, we'll adjourn this informational hearing. Thank you again for always being available, being transparent, and being open to discuss with the public all the great things that GDOE is doing. So it is now 16:15. We will now adjourn this informational hearing. Thank you, everyone. Good night and God bless. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.